Welcome to the Radical Connection Podcast. I am your host, Amaia Bengoa, and I am here today with a very, very special guest who is my daughter, my only daughter. I have many, many, many sons, but I was blessed with a daughter at the very end, and her name, Amaia, actually means the end or the last. So she's a huge blessing in my life. And so today we're going to be having a conversation going along with the theme of what radical connection is, which is embodying our divine essence by marrying, blending, harmonizing our masculine and feminine energies within all four planes of our existence, which is our spiritual, our physical, our emotional, and our mental bodies. So she's going to share with you a little bit today about her spiritual journey, what masculine and feminine energy has looked like in her life as she's discovered that for herself, and what a reality that is, and just how that understanding has changed her life. So Amaia, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Super grateful that you are willing to do this. Be one of my first guests, so that we're, I'm trying to figure all this out. And so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and do this with me.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me just a little bit about, where would you like to start? I mean, I know that we talked about kind of the overarching theme is, spiritual awakening, which I think you had a couple years ago, and it was kind of tied in with your becoming aware of the whole masculine and feminine energy. Is that correct? Or is there you might want to give some backstory, but you just tell us what you want to tell us.
Yeah. I definitely had a big spiritual awakening, I guess about 2.5 years ago. And yeah, I mean, it all really started, I wasn't aware of the masculine feminine dynamic necessarily at the beginning. It really started with me just I was living an extremely toxic lifestyle. My life was a mess, and
So you want to give us a little detail about that? Like, in what way was it a mess?
Yeah. I was super unhealthy. I was nutrient deficient. I probably had adrenal fatigue. I was just completely burnt out. I was drinking every day. I was smoking weed every day. I was in a relationship that was totally toxic. I didn't want to be in it, but I didn't know how to leave. And I was just doing no self-care whatsoever. I was a workaholic. I was constantly on the go. I never slowed down enough to just be able to hear what my body was trying to tell me. So I just came to a place of extreme burnout. I had been vegetarian and vegan for 8 years. I had been on birth control, and all of these things deplete like vital nutrients within our bodies. So I was done. I just couldn't do it anymore. And then I went on a road trip with my best friend, and thank God for her. She lives a slow, peaceful life, and going on that road trip just gave me the time and the space to slow down long enough for me to realize just how out of alignment I was, and I was not living the life that I wanted to live, or I was not being the person that I always said that I wanted to be. And I was just totally out of whack, and going on this road trip and slowing down just helped me to realize that, just how exhausted I was, how toxic my life was. And so that's when I really began to slow down. And that is what I needed, what I realized. And then on that trip, I read a little book that kind of started to explain to me the masculine and feminine characteristics. And I realized that I had just been living in a state of hypermasculinity. I was constantly on the go. My entire life was based around what I was achieving, what I was doing. I was constantly trying to control everybody in my life. I was high-strung.
You remind me of somebody that I know.
I wonder where I got it from. So I was just, I was not soft or nurturing, or I had lost all my creativity. I was doing nothing to take care of myself. I was just constantly in that energy of summer, the masculine go achieve. all of that. So I realized that I didn't want to be living like that and that I was exhausted. And so I came back from that road trip. I quit my job. I broke up with my boyfriend. I moved in with you. At the time, I was just still in my wanting to be I love the outdoors, but I was like I was just so into it. I was living outside.
You were living in the tent under the willow tree.
I was living in a tent in the garden, which was super fun. But, and honestly, I did love that. But I needed to be in a space where I could really go inward and just have that peaceful kind of environment.
And I think food was a big part of that too, wasn't it? Not having a real kitchen to be able to prepare food and eat healthy food and things like that.
I was just eating out like every day because it was inconvenient to be cooking. So yeah, it was good. I moved in with you, and at that point, I just started working like the smallest amount that I possibly could. I really only worked a few hours a week, just enough to get by, and that was enough, and I don't regret that at all. So that really launched a whole 2.5-year process of really just kind of being a hermit and going inward and doing my healing work. I kind of went through like a dark night of the soul, which at first it didn't feel like that. For the first few months after my awakening, I was doing great. I was like on top of the world. Everything felt good. And then after about, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 months, I was like, okay, I'm ready to do my shadow work. And it was so funny how I thought it worked, because I sat down one weekend. I was like, okay, I'm not going to hang out with anybody this weekend. I'm just going to stay home and I'm going to process my sexual trauma. Thinking like, I can just do that in a weekend. No problem. There's shit that I've been ignoring for like years. So of course, nothing happened. Nothing came up. I was like trying and like just trying to journal, and like it just wasn't coming up until like Sunday night, and then it kind of started to come up, and it was like this can of worms that I opened that I had no idea what I was getting into. And so that led me to starting to go to therapy and just start to really do more of my shadow work, looking.
So I'd like to hear what your definition is of both shadow work and the dark night of the soul, because some people really don't even know what those terms mean. What do those mean to you? How was that experience for you?
Well, for me, it's about just looking at the parts of myself that I'm scared to look at.
Okay.
And that I had been ignoring, my unconscious patterns and limiting beliefs, just becoming more aware. To me, like my whole journey, really what I've realized, it's just like an expansion of awareness and like becoming more aware of all of the things, whether they are uncomfortable or they feel good, or, just whatever it is. It's, for me, it was a lot of that, like really coming to terms with like, acknowledging the way that I had been treating my family and my ex-boyfriend and my friends, and just admitting to myself like just the things that I had done that were out of alignment with my highest self. And
it's kind of hard to do that, isn't it? It's like when we finally take the time to turn the mirror on our, put the microscope on ourselves, so to speak, and look at those things that are not fun to look at, and not things that we don't want to admit about ourselves, and go, oh, wow. I remember you telling me about that game that you played and how somebody said something and you're like, oh, shit, that's one of those moments, I think.
Yeah. Right, that was one of them. We were playing a game where me and my friend group, it's this game where it's kind of like you just roast your friends, and it's like, who is the most likely to like do this thing or be this way, and then everybody points at whoever they think that person is. So it can kind of like, it's fun and games, but like it definitely brought up some things for me because we played this right after I had begun this awakening, and one of the question was, who would you not want to work for, or who would be the worst person in this room to work for? And every single person pointed at me.
Oh.
And I was just like, wow. And that for me, as like somebody who's an entrepreneur at heart, that was hard for me, and it really made me wonder like why. I mean, I knew why. Of course nobody would want to work for me. I was high strung, I was controlling, I was micromanaging, I never could learn how to delegate. I was just in this like constant heightened state of like chaos, and just I was all over the place. And then I would snap like at the littlest things. I mean, mostly with the people who were closest to me, but it's like if you just said the one thing, even if it wasn't even a bad thing, like I would just snap at you because I was so dysregulated.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember being snapped at quite a few times.
It was mostly...
But, you know, I think I did the same thing. So I modeled that for you, unfortunately, because I must have been the same way. Because when we had the business, you know, Billy used to call me the warden. And
yeah.
I don't think that I was very fun to work for. And I didn't really like to be the boss of all these men, you know, but it was where I was. But I so totally can relate to that.
Well, yeah. And, like, I didn't realize when I started this journey, like, I wasn't going into it with the mindset of, oh, I'm going to regulate my nervous system. I didn't know what that was really or what that meant. But through all of this, I regulated my nervous system accidentally. I mean, of course, because I finally was slowing down and letting go of the control and just letting go of my expectations of the outcome and letting people just learn and have their experience. And
so what does that look like? Because that's another thing I think that you hear people talk about nervous system regulation, but what does that mean? What does that look like? I mean, how does that play out? How has that played out in your life? How's that shown up for you?
Yeah, it's been huge for me. I mean, regulating my nervous system has changed almost everything in my life. It really is all because I slowed down. I learned how to slow down and rest. For the first time in my life, I finally just allow myself to rest. And of course, I've worked really hard over the last 2 years. It's taken me 2.5 years to get to like where I feel like my body is actually nourished. And I've still got a long way to go. But so it's like nourishing ourselves, my nutrient deficiencies, I was so depleted, like that my body was just in this state of pure stress all the time. And and then I started really having a self-care practice, which for me was a lot of journaling, yoga, meditation, reading, just slow my life down. That's what I needed. And then nourishment, of course, like through my food.
Was it part of that time also that you decided to stop drinking alcohol and using marijuana?
Yeah.
I know that was, I love the way that you would also do things, you would try to do things for 30 days, or you would have a goal for 30 days. And I don't know if with those things it started that way with just a 30-day practice, or you actually decided I'm going to do this for...
Yeah,
okay.
No, I haven't done that 30-day thing in like a few years.
Okay.
Like probably since I was 19. But that was the thing that allowed me to quit vaping. When I was 18, I was very addicted to vaping. And then, the 30-day thing, I was like, I'm going to quit vaping for 30 days and see how I feel. And then, of course, I never did it again because it made me feel horrible. So, no, yeah, around the time, so I had my spiritual awakening. It began in September of 22, and then I quit drinking alcohol in November of that year, and then I quit smoking weed in December. Okay. So, that was a huge part of it, too. Oh, my gosh, like, alcohol is so overrated, and the smoking weed was giving me anxiety, for sure. It is proven that chronic cannabis use will increase your anxiety over time, which is funny because people use it to like help their anxiety, which helps in the moment, but then ultimately long term it's actually making your anxiety worse most of the time. So that was a huge part of it, is just cutting out more toxins from my life. And doing all of these things really just allowed me to go inward. Like I had been ignoring myself. I had been ignoring my body. My body had been screaming at me for who knows how long. And I just had no idea because I was constantly numbing out. I didn't even know until after I'd started to slow down. I didn't even have any idea that my life was toxic until after I had come out of it. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, I was exhausted. I was miserable. I was so toxic. I wasn't treating my friends well. So regulating my nervous system by just slowing down, nourishing myself, doing more of things that I loved, whether it's body nourishment or soul nourishment, really becoming tuned into my body. Yoga was huge for me for that reason, because it really helps me to like get into my body and really check in with myself and see how I'm feeling. That changed everything, and regulating my nervous system like has helped me to deepen my relationships, be more present with my friends. Also quitting the substances helped me to be more present for sure.
Did you find that was difficult because of the fact that so many of your friend group, they were still consuming the substances, weren't they, when you quit?
Yeah.
Did you find that difficult for you to still be in that environment even though you decided to abstain?
No, I was ready. I'm kind of the type of person who, like, once I'm ready to do something, I'm very independent, so I'm not really very influenced by like other people. Of course I am. Everybody's influenced by others, but like once I'm ready to do something, I just do it. And at first I was nervous about being around other people, like going to parties and being the sober person, but what I quickly discovered was that I actually enjoyed parties much more.
Oh, really? Why is that? In what way?
Because I was able to be more present. Normally when I was at a party, I would just be like all over the place, like bouncing from person to person, like only kind of listening and only kind of being there and getting distracted. But going on this journey just allowed me to be more present. And so I definitely always want to leave. Not always, but I often want to leave earlier than other people, because once people get to like a certain point of drunk, it's just not as fun for me.
Right. When you're not in it with them, then you really notice it a lot more, don't you?
Yeah, you definitely. So I definitely became more sensitive to like people being drunk, like wasted and obnoxious, and I'm just like, I just don't even want to be a part of this. But that's not really my friend group. My friend group is more like, you know, have a few drinks, smoke a little bit, play some games. Like, we're pretty chill. And so I really enjoyed it, that it has helped me to just be more present with my friends. And yeah, thankfully, like, I was just ready and it just was easy. Like, it's not like I had to convince myself to stop doing these things. That's where I'm so grateful for my intuition. I am so, especially now, like so connected to my body and my intuition, and I just kind of have a knowingness. I just know when it's time, and my body kind of just tells me that it's ready. It wasn't like, oh, I have to try and quit. I'm gonna try and quit next week. It was just like, I remember the last time that I drank alcohol, I was at a party, and I had been drinking. At that point, I had slowed down my alcohol consumption to where I was only drinking like here and there. And I had a few glasses of wine, and I just really didn't like the way that it made me feel. I just had expanded my awareness of the way that my body is feeling, which I had never done before. And so I just knew. I just drank, and I was like, this isn't fun anymore. Like, my body doesn't feel good. And so it was easy to just stop. The harder thing for me was cannabis, because I was a huge stoner for many, many, many years, unfortunately. And that was a little bit harder. But even then, like, I kind of just knew once I was ready. I just knew that it wasn't serving me. It was kind of keeping me stuck. I just wasn't really reaching my full potential.
Are you okay talking about it? And if you're not, that's fine. when you reached your 1 year mark of not using cannabis anymore, and then you kind of started to dabble in it a little bit, and part of that was with me, honestly, you'd come here and I would have it, and we would get high together, and we would laugh and have deep, meaningful conversations, and just have some really great times, and dance and just really have fun together. But are you open to sharing what happened with that, and then what the outcome was once you kind of realized what was happening?
Yeah. So I started smoking again a year later, and I was like, okay, it's been a year, and I never really intended to fully quit, like, for the rest of my life. It was like, I really said, I'm going to quit for a year and then see how I feel. Because really, I just wanted to get to where I could consume it consciously and in moderation. I've just always really, really struggled with consuming cannabis in moderation. So I started again, and I was like, I'm only going to smoke like maybe once a month. And at first, like, I was doing that. But then as time went on and life got more stressful, it got to where I was full blown in my addiction again. And it's really interesting, actually, now that I think about it, at first, after I smoked that first time, it was like immediately my brain was like, we need this every day. And like, I was
really?
So for 2 weeks after that, I was like wanting to smoke and probably smoking every day. And then I was like, okay, this isn't what I want. I said I was going to use it consciously. I'm going to cut back. I'm just going to smoke every once in a while. So I kind of was able to do that for a few months, just smoking, maybe a couple times a month. But then as life got more stressful and things started picking up, and I just got full-blown addicted. And the thing about me, and I don't think that cannabis use altogether is a bad thing. I just think that for me personally, it's really hard for me to use it in moderation, and it was not serving me. And I had started smoking really young. I was 14 when I started smoking. So I had been a chronic cannabis user from age 14 to 22. So this was like hardwired into my brain. I mean, those are the most important years of our brain development.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that can be detrimental in some ways to be a chronic user during those ages.
That's honestly a really hard thing for a parent to hear and to accept the fact that that type of thing was going on right under my nose, and I was not aware of it. So I guess that kind of points to maybe my lack of presence or unconsciousness or whatever it was. I was always super busy, involved in the business and doing things, and and I guess kids just often are doing things that their parents don't know that they're doing. You know? So
definitely.
I'm very sorry that I was so not present so much of the time when you kids were growing up, and
yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's all part of the journey,
Yeah.
I don't regret it. I definitely see how smoking that much at such a young age really affected my cognitive function. I really kind of lost my love for learning. Learning became really hard.
Is that kind of when you also lost your because when you loved music so much when you were younger, and then there became a period of time when you just lost interest in doing your music, which was hard for me too, because
older.
That was older.
That was when I was about 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't really feel like that had anything to do with that?
Probably not, no. Yeah. No, not really. So, anyway, cannabis can be amazing. It can be such a wonderful plant and thing to use. I think it's just important to be conscious with our use of it, because it can turn from a great thing into a not so great thing. And the thing about it is, it's not like, oh, this is detrimental to my life. Like, this is ruining my life. It's not like if I was, addicted to heroin or something. But and that's why I think it becomes dangerous, is because it's so subtle, like
Yes.
the negative effect that it can have on your life, that it just has become so normal and accepted. But for me, I was like, I am not living my full potential. Like, this is not serving me. And I had gone full blown back into addiction just this year, that, you know, in 2024, to where, I mean, I was ashamed. I didn't want people to know, but I was like full blown, like, I couldn't live without it. I was smoking all day, every day. I was like super anxious. If I didn't have it, I would get home from work and immediately, first thing I do, I have to smoke. Like, and I know for sure I was avoiding, it was out of avoidance of myself. I definitely have used it to numb out and to avoid really feeling what my body is trying to tell me. And so this time around, I've been completely sober for like 3 months almost, I think. And this time around, it was hard because I was going through a lot this last summer, and it was very stressful. And I knew consciously while I was doing it, I was like, I'm using this to help me cope with how hard this year is, and I'm okay with that for now.
Yeah.
Once life chills out, I'm gonna stop. So, I was so addicted though. Like, I had to really convince myself. It was hard. I had to like consciously be like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is hurting me. I had to go back and listen to the Huberman Lab podcast on the effects of marijuana, because I'm really passionate about my health. And I knew like this is not good for my health. But I was just so into it. I had to expose myself to that information again to like motivate me enough to stop doing it. And yeah, in the last 3 months, like, I feel amazing. Like, it was hard at first for about the first week. I craved it. And even for the first couple days, I didn't know that you could have withdrawals from cannabis, but I was having full-on withdrawals.
Really?
Nausea, headaches, fatigue, mood swings.
Oh, I do remember you calling me and telling me that you weren't feeling well, and you thought that was why.
Yeah, that was definitely why. That lasted for like maybe 2 or 3 days, and then luckily it got better after that. But I didn't know that you could have full-on withdrawals from cannabis, but I did, and now I feel great. I don't have a desire to use it. I do use CBD sometimes when I'm feeling anxious, or if I've had a really long day, and I don't have an issue with that. Personally, it's not something that I want to do every day. I really don't want to be dependent on anything every day. And I also don't want to be running from my discomfort all of the time.
Yeah. That's so much of, isn't it? I mean, it's just kind of that wanting to distract ourselves, numb out. I think, like you said, I definitely do feel like that cannabis is in the plant medicine category, where it can be beneficial. It has helped me in myriads of ways, mainly just slow down, relax, chill out, not be so high strung. Help me to learn to be able to move my body. But I definitely, see how, when it does get to be an addiction like that, and you're using it all the time. For me, wine was a lot like that. I mean, to be around that, it seems so harmless, kind of. And so many people, drink wine or drink alcohol, socially, or just, come home from work and I just want to chill out. But I, like you with your cannabis use, I couldn't just stop at one drink. Typically, if I had a glass of wine, I wanted 2 or 3 or 4 glasses of wine. Drink the whole bottle. And it just wasn't a good thing. But it was find that I don't feel like I have as much strong of willpower as you have to be able to be around it. It's been harder for me to be around it and not consume it when it's there. So
it can be really hard, especially when it's been something you've been doing for so long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's really hard I'm really grateful that alcohol is not my like drug of choice. I mean, I've definitely had phases of alcohol addiction where I was just drinking every day, but it's always been much easier for me to quit that. And I'm really grateful that hasn't been my biggest issue because it's everywhere. I mean, you can't get away from it. Everything in our culture is centered around alcohol.
It is.
You literally can't go anywhere.
And it's just so normalized. It's like it's almost expected. Like what's wrong with you if you're not having a drink? Why? What's wrong with you? You know.
Yeah.
And I have several social settings where with some very good friends, and that's just what we did. We would get together and we always drank, and I usually would drink too much, and it's been kind of hard to be in those settings and not be partaking. But I have lately. I haven't had any alcohol for, I don't know, a few months, I think now, which feels amazing.
Yeah. Once you feel what it feels like to be sober for an extended period of time, it's like so hard to go back. It just feels so good. I feel so clear. I have so much more energy. I don't feel so many less like embarrassing moments, when I'm drinking or I'm smoking. I just say stupid things. Like my cognitive function just declines so much, and I just say things that I wish I hadn't said.
Well, one of the things I've really noticed with you lately is how much more your love of learning has increased, how much more you're reading, and all of that. Because I know before you said reading was kind of, I don't know if it was hard for you or you just didn't enjoy it, but you didn't do a lot of it, and now it seems like you told me the other day that you just want to learn. You're just really hungry to learn and to read and to learn new things, which is one of my, actually being a learner is my top strength in the Strengths Finder test, but so that just to be that sponge, like when we're kids, little kids, they just want to learn everything. They're just like, oh, they're so curious. And there's just something very, I don't know, for me, exhilarating about that, about just learning new, there's so much to learn in life. It's just life is such a miracle, and it's just so incredible to learn all there is to know about this amazing universe that we live in, so
it's been so fun. I love that. Like, I have recently rediscovered my love of learning, and I think part of it is because I'm finally at this place in my life where I'm not like learning because I have to try to be pursuing like a career or some big project. I'm just learning because I love it, and because like I want to implement these things into my life, which is great because I've always just, again, I was very hyper masculine, just constantly like, I have to achieve something. I have to create this big business or this big thing. And like, so I've got to go learn this thing so that I can apply it to this thing so that I can make money.
So that's a great segue into that part of the conversation about masculine and feminine energy, what that looks like, how it shows up in our lives, how it showed up for you in your life. You did mention earlier in the conversation about, that whole, that the masculine is the go, 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 the productivity, the achievement, it's the doing, right? It's the getting things done. And you didn't feel like you were as much in your feminine, and that's somewhere that you've been moving into. How's that looked for you?
Yeah. It's been an interesting journey, for sure. There was definitely, like, the pendulum swing at first, where I went from being super hyper masculine to just totally neglecting my masculine side, not wanting to do anything. I mean, I was extremely burnt out. So, like, I needed to just rest and do hardly anything, do as little as I could for a couple of years. And I think I was kind of mad at my masculine during that time, and I was fully focused on the feminine, which I needed. I did need that. So I've really learned to integrate more of those feminine characteristics, like softening, nurturing, reconnecting with my creativity a little bit. That's still a big one that I'm working on. But, just being playful, having fun, doing things just because they're fun and just because I enjoy them, not because I have to reach a certain goal or achieve a certain thing.
I think that is such a key thing, is playfulness.
Yeah.
And just that light, playful, that's been a big one for me, as I've been also on this journey myself. And, learning to be playful, be silly, not being afraid to, if some, worried about somebody, I might look dumb because I'm doing, like in the fall, I went and raked up all the leaves and then I laid in there and I took a picture of myself. I posted it and I thought, oh, people probably think I'm such a weirdo, but I don't even really care. Just let them think that because I need to play, and I'm recognizing how much play is really a vital thing that as we get to be adults, we often don't, we just don't do enough of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I really just now feel like I'm starting to get to a place where I actually am having like the healthy feminine and the healthy masculine. Mm-hmm. It's taken me like 2.5 years to get here because while I was trying to go more into my feminine, I wasn't playing. I was resting and I was being more nurturing to myself and to the people in my life. Although I was I was like doing the bare minimum of keeping my relationships intact. Like I just didn't have the energy to socialize, and really I was just fully going inward. And now I'm finally to a place, and this is attributed to a lot of things. Like definitely my spiritual practices, I've done a ton of work in therapy. I've done somatic healing to help me process things in my body. And then a huge part of it is obviously my nourishment. Like I'm really honed in on my diet and my my movement practices, and have cut out things that are inflammatory, and so like my body is doing way better, and also being sober. Like I'm finally at a place where I'm not neglecting my masculine anymore. I'm like having the energy to do things, and I'm starting to enjoy my life again. I've picked back up some of my old hobbies. I've been making new friends, reconnecting with old friends, just like really trying to just have more fun and enjoy my life. But then at the same time, I'm working enough now to where I'm actually able to support myself financially. And
that's something I want to just hit on a little bit again, and how being in our feminine, which being in the feminine is more being in flow. It's about not feeling like we have to control everything, not feeling like we have to go out and make things happen, doing the work. I mean, it's that marriage of the masculine and the feminine. We don't just not do anything. We need to get up and be ready and go out there, but we don't have to be out there really pursuing. And in your cleaning business, as you've been wanting to bring on new clients, and I have found it very interesting recently what's been happening for you, how it's kind of just been coming to you, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And that is an outcome of being in flow.
Yeah.
And being, trusting spirit, to just bring us what we need and to provide. Yeah. And so I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that, but that's
totally. And not only like, spirit will provide, but also spirit will provide when I'm ready to receive that thing. Like if the clients had started rolling in 3 months ago, I would not have been ready. I did not have the energy. I was still recovering from like a really crazy summer. I was, I hadn't figured out like the kind of the key to like my diet and like what had been giving me all these problems I was having. Like I just wasn't there yet. And now just really in the last month, the clients have started rolling in and they've just been coming. I haven't been like going out and like trying to find them and doing all of these like big marketing pushes or anything like that. Like they've just been coming, and it's because I'm actually ready. I have the energy now. Like I'm in a place, I have the time, I have the energy, I'm excited about life, and I'm living my life from this place of just doing it because out of joy and because I want to, not because I have to. And like, just changing that mindset of like, I get to do this. And, for a while I didn't want to come back to a cleaning business, but now I'm so grateful. Like cleaning houses is not my passion in life, but I'm so grateful that I'm able to do this because it allows me, this is part of the feminine thing. I don't want to work full time. I don't think we're meant to work full time. I don't think anybody's meant to work as much as like we work in our culture, but agree. especially women, like, I'm meant to be just loving my life and having fun, you know, and like nurturing myself. And so I want plenty of time to do that, to rest and to play and to work. So I only really want to be working like 20 hours a week so that I have plenty of time to play. And cleaning houses allows me to do that. And so coming at it from that mindset of like, this is a blessing. I get to do this work so that I have all of this other time to pursue my passions and learn about my interests and have fun and pick my hobbies back up and deepen my relationships. Like, it's such a blessing.
Yeah.
And shifting my mindset on that, and then prioritizing really healing, like really healing the root cause of like the things that are going on in my life, physically with my body and in my emotional body, like doing all of that work has cleared up so much space for these new things to come into my life and to be able to be in flow.
Well, you know, a really important thing, because I know as you wanted to raise your prices and you were struggling with that a little bit, and is I see how everything is so connected, because when we feel like we are worth it, right? We're worthy of earning more money, or we're worthy of, say spending the extra money to buy organic food, or to buy the supplements that we need, or to pay for a gym membership, or whatever it is, those things to take care of this incredible body that, inhabits, that is the temple of the Spirit of the living God, right?
Yeah.
And we honor it, and we understand that we are worth it. We're worth this investment. I think that's really important in beginning to then just these things beginning to show up, and these higher paying clients have just started coming in effortlessly, haven't they? I mean, and I think that is a big outflowing of how you've been treating yourself, how you've been showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And because you believe that you're worthy of this.
Yeah.
These things are just happening for you.
Oh, yeah.
It's very inspiring, Amaia, honestly. She really is kind of like my coach and mentor at this point in my life. We really can learn from our kids, and she has been such a great inspiration for me in this journey that I've been on lately to heal myself and to just become a softer, more feminine woman. So thank you so much for all that you teach me and the inspiration that you are for me. So
thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Let's talk we'll need to close up here shortly, but I do want to have you just briefly mention, when you talked about, when we talk about a spiritual awakening, that a lot of people don't really know what that means. So much of what we consider spiritual is connected to religion. Yeah. And of course you were raised in religion, and I'm very grateful that we did that. I think that we definitely taught you kids, about having a relationship with God and about living a faith-filled life. And we've done so many things throughout our lives where we've just seen miracles all the time, because that's what we expected, because we were very, very faith-driven people. Yeah. But when we left religion back in 2010, that was a very big part of your life, and you were very, very connected to our belief system. But more than that, you had a deep love for God. And how was that hard for you when we kind of changed our belief system? And I know with some of the kids, it just kind of is like, oh my gosh, well now what do we do? Now what do we believe? Did you end up feeling like you became disconnected in your relationship to God, and then have found it again? Or what's kind of your journey been in that realm?
Well, at the time, I had stayed in the church for 2 years longer than you, which I'm grateful that you let me do that, because that was like my whole life, and my whole community was there, and that was amazing. But then, after that, I kind of just became an angsty teenager, and I was struggling with depression and just all of the things, and I definitely disconnected from God. And then, so that was like around age 13, I just really disconnected from God. And then by the time I was like 16, I had kind of come back to spirituality, but in a different way. And kind of just started exploring that. And I would say I've always been like a spiritual person, but I want to say most people don't seem to know this, but the definition of spirituality is just to be concerned with the human spirit. Spirituality is separate. It's not the same thing as like God. You can be in my opinion, I'm like, you can be an atheist and still be spiritual, because if you're concerned with your own well-being, your own spirit, and with others, and you're just a good person who's like wanting to live a quality life and have high spirits, you're a spiritual person. Even if you don't have that and you're just like totally living in darkness, I mean everybody's spiritual in some way.
Well, it's part of our makeup. We are physical, we're spiritual. The spiritual are the unseen, the non-physical. It's it's our breath. Breath is part of spirit. Our intuition, our inspiration, all of those things are our spirit. That's the part of us that if we don't have those things, especially the breath, if we don't have the breath, we're not here anymore. And so yes, thank you for bringing that in, because I think it's like, oh, the spirit, are you part of the spiritual community, or are you spiritual? It's like,
some of the most spiritual people that I know don't talk about God ever. It's like, but of course, like, having a relationship with God is a big part of spirituality for many people. And like, that's what I was missing. Like, I would say that I've always been like pretty spiritual in the sense that like, it's something that I've thought about, I've pursued, when I was like 15 and I had been depressed for 2 years, I decided I didn't want to be depressed anymore. And so then I began like a spiritual, incorporating more spiritual practices. But what I was missing the whole time up until just less than a year ago was that relationship with God, which I think looks different for a lot of people. And to me, God is so many things. Like, God is so multifaceted, and like, I'm really just exploring that still. But really what changed everything for me was just probably 9 months ago, I realized that God was just this like very vague thing. I hadn't prayed in years. Like, I was spiritual, but I wasn't connected to source, to spirit, to creator. And that's something that I really love about like the Christian community, is that just like relationship with God, that deep connection. And so I kind of rediscovered that, and that changed everything for me, because what brought me to that point was realizing that I was constantly trying to control everything in my life. And I was exhausted from doing that. Like, I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to have all of that weight on my shoulders. And so I came to this place after just like basically crisis around my spiritual identity of just being like, God, I don't want to do this. Like, just help me. Like, take the reins. Like, I don't want to try and be controlling this anymore. You have a divine plan. And I just want to be responding, listening, and acting. What is that thing?
Shema.
Shema. Listen and obey. Like, and to me, I feel like life is kind of a co-creation with God.
It is, definitely.
Like, there is a divine plan, but if I'm not slowing down, if I'm not quieting my mind, if I'm not dropping into my heart, dropping into my body, I'm not going to be able to hear that divine plan. And I don't really want to be trying to control it all and have it all figured out. Like, that was so exhausting. And ever since I stopped doing that, and I really allowed myself to just step into faith that I'm being taken care of, and that everything is working out just how it's supposed to, and my job is literally just to get quiet and to listen, to connect, to go within, to be of service, really to discover what my own unique contribution is, and then go for it and just be guided.
Yep.
That is what changed everything for me. And like I said, that was like 9 months ago that I figured that out. And since then, everything has just been coming together. Like, I quit my job at the gym when I didn't have enough house cleaning clients to sustain myself. And I was living alone. Like, my expenses were high. That was another thing. I decided to live alone because I knew I needed that space to really do my deep healing work and to just like live more authentically and to heal, just to heal energetically and physically and emotionally. So I just said, I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to pay these bills, but I'm going to do it. And then a few months later, I quit my job so that I could build my cleaning business so that I could make more money and work less hours. And like, I didn't know how it was all going to come together, but somehow I've always paid my rent. I've always paid my bills. There's always been enough. If I didn't have enough money, something would come up and I would be able to make more money. And like, it is all because I chose to stop trying to control everything and just listen to what spirit is trying to tell me and then doing it. Just going for it, just stepping out in faith. Not needing to know. Like, there's so much beauty and magic and wonder in just surrendering to the uncertainty and the mystery of life. It's like, I don't need to have it all figured out.
Exactly.
And that has
There's
been
so much
amazing.
freedom in that, isn't there? To just know we're so loved, we're so held, we're so cared for. You know, the Bible talks about be anxious for nothing, you know, and trust and know that God has our back and God will provide for us, and God has always provided, always. And so sometimes in small ways and sometimes in these just huge miraculous ways. But if you're unaware of the word Shema that we talked about, in the Hebrew word, so in the English Bible, there are a lot of words that are used, and you can go to a thing called the Strong's Concordance and look up the original, what that word is in the original Hebrew or Greek, depending on if it's Old or New Testament. And the word obey, which is a word most of us don't really like very much. And because we all kind of like, you know, don't tell me what to do. We want to do our own thing. You know, that's Amaia's dad, that's kind of his big saying, don't tell me what to do. So we don't really like that word typically, obey. But really the word, if you go back and look, is really to hear, right? To hear, what is God saying? What is Spirit saying to you? But it's also implied that you will take action. So when Spirit talks to you, you obey, right? You listen, you take inspired action based on that leading. And it's just incredible when you begin to do that, even down to the smallest little things, like when, you know, I'll feel like somebody's just comes through my mind, on my heart, like, oh, I wonder, and trying to get better about just giving them a call or sending them a text and saying, hey, how you doing? Or just thinking of you or whatever, because it's those simple little things, you know, that when we learn to pay attention, it's really big, isn't it?
Yeah. And it really like builds and grows. Like, I was acknowledging myself recently for how far I've come on just that being able to hear and understand, because like I said, 2.5 years ago, my life was so toxic and I had no idea. Like, I was literally miserable and I didn't even know. Yeah. Because I was that disconnected from my body, from spirit, from intuition. Yeah. And now I'm to the point where it's like, I just instantly can tell most of the time if something's not right for me. Yeah. Like, I've been especially doing it a lot with foods, as I'm on a really restricted diet at the moment, and like doing a lot of work to heal like the root cause of some of my health issues. Like, I just immediately know. Sometimes I don't even have to eat the food. I just am like, oh, that's not it. Or like a person, you know, if I know like, ooh, I don't like, that's not a good person to be around, or just whatever it is. It's in so many ways. Or I'm really passionate about the body. So I apply it a lot in like working on my healing journey. But I'm to the point where like I can just feel so deeply what my body is telling me, what spirit is telling me. I just have messages come through and I'm not even asking for them, and I can just see exactly what spirit is trying to tell me, whether it's in my dreams or just in my day-to-day life. Like I was playing solitaire the other day and spirit was talking to me through the cards. Like I didn't even ask. I was just playing a card game, you know? Like, and it's just because I really attribute it all to slowing down. Like if people can go away with like one thing from this conversation, slow your life down. Like,
yes.
A simple life is going to work wonders and work miracles in your life. Like, we were never meant to be so overstimulated and so overworked and so constantly on the go like we are now. Like, that is not how our bodies are designed.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
The more that we can just slow down our life and find joy and deep connection and, you know, nourishment, like, that is the secret to it all. Like, that has changed everything for me. Learning how to rest, learning how to go inward, developing, you know, self-care practices, in all the ways, you know, with movement, with what I'm putting in my body, what I'm exposing myself to, my relationships, you know, really exploring my inner world, diving into my emotions. I've done a ton of work on learning to feel again. I was so numb for so long. I didn't want to feel anything. And I've come to the place where, like, I have built the capacity, I've made room for my sadness, for my grief, for my anger, for my pain, for my joy. Like, I mean, of course, I'm still working all of these things. I'm not like, oh, I've arrived, but like, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have a long ways to go, but you are way further ahead than I was at your age. And I'm super, super grateful that to see that you are going to bypass a lot of the things that I've gone through because you have started this journey and this process and this awareness and this awakening at such an early age. So
thank you.
Really grateful for that. Yeah. And I don't know if you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. I can talk to her for hours on end. And oftentimes she'll call and share something about her day or something that happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this would make a great podcast, you know? So if you loved this conversation, then make a note, drop a comment, and let me know if you'd like her to come back and talk some more. There's so many things that we can talk about, really, so much more. So I'd love to have her back. If you'd like to have her back, please let us know. So that was a great ending. Is there any one final thing you'd like to say, or do you feel complete?
I feel good.
Okay. Well, I am so grateful for all of you that have sat here with us for an hour and been a part of this conversation. This is the second interview that I've done on this podcast. And actually, I haven't even recorded my intro video yet, but this has given me great inspiration to get that done. So I'm excited for all of you to see this. And again, thank you so much for joining, and we will see you on the next episode.